لو تقيرني ولديت زوزا وترضاتني خداني خيرات نبتلي عرضان زيني بابت مصوالي جندي بقرا الولات شعر الصلاة سرتك ترى بقرنا بلتي درمان عضالي زيني بابت مو سوالي جندي دي سا اشخر ببينا ورثوا دنيا أفتوا كالي أفتوا الله من الشتر نوش فخريم
Evdal the Dengbej, Evdal the Poet. A biography of the legendary Kurdish poet Evdal Zeynik whispers to us some of the truth about our relationship with nature. Evdal was the Dengbej poet, singer of Shurmeli Mehmet Paja, Ararat's principality. After the death of his patron, Pasha Mehmet, Evdal loses everything and lives in misery with his adopted son, Temo. As he gets older, he loses his eyesight and goes blind. On a hazy autumn, early morning, Evdal wakes up to the cries of a crane. He walks towards the sound and finds the crane with a broken wing. The whole winter, he takes care of the sick crane. Spring comes. One day, he sees himself in his dream, watching the flight of the crane with his own eyes. Evdal wakes up. He notices his eyesight has returned. He goes to the bird, unfolds its wing. The crane flies away. Curing the crane, he cures himself. Good evening, again. My name is Bruno. I'm the curator and resident liaison of the Jan van Eyck Academy, and I would like to welcome you all to Environmental Identities number 5, a thread between two mountains from Ararat to Cîlo. This is the 5th event of a series that is trying to look upon the co-defining relationship between self and social identity and the natural environment. For the last week, we've been screening 2 works from our current participants. The film Weak Enough to Hear, A Delusion 6 Acts by Pejvak, a long-term collaboration between Felix Kalmenson and Husbe Akbari, and a short teaser of the ongoing project Invasive Species by our current participant, Savage Boiras. This evening, we gathered the artists in conversation, drawing from the 2 works, and also alongside scholar Yektan Turkilmaz. Yektan received his PhD from Duke University, Department of Cultural Anthropology, and taught at several universities addressing the debates around the notion of collective violence, memory making and reconciliation, and the politics of music. Again, for more detailed information on the speakers, please go to our website. And if you want to interact in our conversation by asking questions or making comments, use the Zoom Q&A and the YouTube chat. And trusting that the technique will work this time, I'll give the word to our speakers.
Hello again, everybody. Sorry for the ghosts that we have here. They are not behaving. But hopefully we have them in check for now. I would like to welcome everybody again. And today's event is talking about 2 works that are talking about the same geography. The Upper Mesopotamia, Fertile Crescent, and Kurdish landscape, Armenian landscape, Eurasia, we could name it in different ways. And because it comes with a very heavy and colorful baggage, historiography, and ethnic differences and political background, we wanted to invite Yektan to give us a ground where our works can be placed and understood and discussed. So I wanted to ask Yektan to join in us and start with this presentation.
Yes, thank you very much once again, Savaş. Thank you also to Bruno and for including me in this very inspiring event. Yes, I'm an anthropologist, but I did much research on the Armenian genocide in particular, and the broader region of Upper Mesopotamia, Northern Kurdistan, or Western Armenia, Eastern Anatolia, name it, that area. And first of all, I have to let me congratulate both of you for this amazing artwork. I think you do not only speak to an audience that focuses on art, but I think you have a lot to tell us, teach historians, anthropologists, about how to see, how to rethink history, society in connection with non-human actors, and especially with environment. That is why I picked this title for this short presentation, Upper Mesopotamia Beyond Anthropocentric Histories, Environment, Violence, and Subjectivity. And there's a map. I don't know if you can all see the map. This is an ethnographic map prepared by Royal Geographic Society, 1912, and it basically shows ethnic groups and their distribution on on the terrain of Eastern Upper Mesopotamia, and in many ways this is kind of, you know, despite its many colors, it's kind of erasing the experience. So you basically see a territory which is defined by its human population, and not even a human population. It's defined by the cultural identity of the inhabitants, or supposed presumed cultural identity of the inhabitants. But and actually, going back to the two amazing works, let me first start saying that within, like, 10 minutes, it's going to be quite difficult to give a summary of really complicated events going back to 1820s, which shed lights to the ongoing contestation and rivalries and conflict in the region. But let me first start saying that when we talk about Armenian question, when we talk about the Kurdish question, if you want to call them as questions, or the issues, we are not talking about one event. Actually, we are talking about different experiences. And rather than telling a story of the conflicts or conflict over this territory in general, I would like to specify today's brief talk on this line from Mount Ararat to Cîlo. And first of all, I would rather define this area as an inter-imperial frontier area, rather than any land that belongs to one political entity. I'm defining it so because this area did not mark just any area, but it was an area which made connections possible. Or, if you look on the map, both Cîlo and Ararat are located just very close to the political borders today, and they were located actually very close to the borders, even if you go back to 3-4 centuries. So And being located on the borders did not only mean that they separated. On the contrary, actually, these were the lines that connected the groups from both sides of the areas. Second thing I would like to say about this area is that one should not treat neither the people nor the identities as given, because the history that I will be talking briefly about today actually is also the history of becoming for these groups. It's not that they were like, there and they were actors as collective actors going back to a century or 2 centuries ago, but the story that I will be talking about today is also the story of these groups becoming themselves. Let me, at this point, go to the second slide, which gives a broader, which gives a less focused representation of the cartographic representation of the area. And let me also give a very broad, very important, let's say, crucial moments in the history that made that region as we know it today. I think one crucial moment is the centralization efforts by the Ottoman Empire and Russification efforts of the Russian Empire, which actually was the geopolitical context within which a relatively stable situation in the area began to escalate. So after 1820s, we see a very radical shuffling of everything, especially especially in terms of people's connection to space, because centralization, among other things, required sedentarization of nomads and an increased awareness of frontier areas, because centralization actually helps or pushes the central governments to think about territory as a body, and it is those frontiers which probably cause not only in this context but in general the most anxiety about the well-being or the integrity of the body. So starting 1820s onward, you see increased nervousness of central state apparatus when we talk about the Ottoman Empire, about the situation in this area. And another, and the history of this area, we cannot talk about it without talking about history of violence. And of course, one way of approaching violence is to see its continuity. But another way is, I think, to see certain moments of violence that brought about breaks, crucial shifts in the history. One turning point, I would say, is the 1894-96 massacres, which targeted Christians of the area by and large. And of course, the most crucial turning point would be 1915, the genocide. If you noticed it, I didn't call it the Armenian genocide. Among other things, of course, it was also an Armenian genocide. But if we look at this genocide from the Mount Cîlo and Mount Ararat axis, you see that it was not only the genocide of Armenians. It was also the genocidal extermination also targeted non-Muslim groups like Yazidis and Assyrians, who were most visible, especially in this area from, let's say, especially in Van and all the way to Cholamerg, Hakkari, where all these groups coexisted. And another turning point, I would say, is the redrawing of the political map, which actually should which pushes us to think about the roots of issues around identities or claims around identities. Actually, redrawing of the maps or recreating the borders or reinforcing the borders actually was very crucial in terms of creating a new identity, that is a modern understanding of Kurdishness. If we look at the various spaces of Kurdish question in the 1920s and 1930s, you see that the border making imposed by central states was definitely a major cause in creating discontent among the Kurds, and what ensued would be regional resistance movements that continued all the way to 1938. And again, if we look at this period from Mount Cîlo, Mount Ararat axis, you see that this area was a very particularly important area of discontent and insurgency in this period. To cite just two incidents. One is the 1924 Beit Shabab or Nestorian resistance, and then 1920s Mount Ararat resistance movements. And again, going back to these areas being inter-imperial spaces, you see that in all those moments, in all these resistance movements, you see that they do not only happen in one side of the border. Actually, they're all cross-border activities. And particularly important in understanding the Kurdish question, modern Kurdish question, or even in understanding remaking of Armenian identities, I think one crucial moment is late 1980s, but particularly the end of the Cold War, because we see the emergence of new collective actors like Republic of Armenia, Independent Republic of Armenia, and especially the rise of the PKK, which redefined the entire question and pushed us to rethink the history of the conflict over the region. And finally, I would like to come to this. I would like to end with the neo-colonial techniques of governmentality, which I believe directly connects my brief talk to today's presentations. So since we are talking about, I said, the first map, this one does not really give us any idea about the people's experience of space, with the space, their experience with environment, their experience with other, let's say, bodies, non-human bodies, and how that's related to shaping society, shaping politics, and shaping identities. And recent work, and especially artistic representations like the ones that we will see today, I think pushes us more to the direction of thinking in terms of hodology and montology. If you look at especially particularly this area, that's why I found very interesting that two presentations today are both about mountains, or it's about human beings looking at mountains, or human beings' relations with mountains. And another thing that I will suggest to bring environment back into the picture is hodology. That is to look at the paths, or look at the connections, look at, like, you know, how environment actually creates and disables communication and connection with among different groups and collectivities of human beings. Making it, like, you know, more specific, looking from let's say from the point of gaze of, like, you know, the state. Actually, I should emphasize, I should underline that state apparatus, or especially the Turkish state, has from the outset, from the early days, state official thought very seriously, took environment and space very seriously. Because they thought that, like, you know, one way of coming, you know, preventing insurgency or resistance or challenge in these sensitive areas is to reshape people's connections with space, and to that effect, in 1934, a resettlement law was enacted, and the idea, and this law was meant to redistribute human groupings, taking into consideration their cultural features of those communities, and also having on mind the priority of economic efficiency. And one especially targeted area was definitely the area which is going to be addressed today. And you see on the left-hand side the map, a map prepared by Turkish military in 1940s, showing the tribes, rebellious tribes. And what is really noteworthy here is that they are on both sides of the border. So, this area continues to be an interstate, if not inter-imperial area. So you see that nation states were never actually perfectly capable of disabling cross-border osmosis for various groups, especially for Kurds. And yet these efforts would never be as effective as the recent effort by the Turkish state to again, like, you know, bringing environment and space back to in a way, in order to weaponize the environment to establish a neo-colonial order in this area, in Kurdish areas, and then particularly in the areas bordering Rojava or southern Kurdistan, so to speak, or Kurdistan regional government, the areas controlled by Kurdistan regional government, and areas controlled by Syrian democratic forces. So what happens here is, like, you know, especially since 2010, you see an effort to again like the one in 1930s to take insurgency under control by reshaping people's access and experience with space. And three major techniques we come across in this sense is well, the first one is very straightforward, which is high security checkpoints called Kalekol, and second one is hydroelectric plants, which are weaponized in the sense that For instance, the map on the slide shows how actually the dams are constructed in a way to separate the Kurds of who live in the on the Turkish side of the border from their kins from the other side of the border. And this map is from a recent publication by Bekir Avcı. So to wrap it up, I think in anthropology, in the study of violence, we had a linguistic turn going back to the 1980s. As of 2000s, now we have the environmental turn, and this actually, I think, allows us to better understand multiplicity of experiences. That is to say, instead of, for instance, bringing together or putting all the experiences in one basket, and this enables us to better understand how environment actually enabled or created the conditions not only of oppression but also resistance. And I would like to stop here, and looking forward to seeing and hearing the amazing work by two of our other contributors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ektan, for this beautiful presentation. It actually not only answered our questions, but also gave us, at least for me, a new perspective for some of the possible future works, actually. Now, we will come back to you towards the end of the event in the Q&A section. And I hope you stay with us until then. Yeah,
I would love to stay, and I'm looking forward to your presentations, actually.
Yeah, thank you. Now we are going to show one of the works, the one that was made by me. It's not a work, actually, it's a work in progress. And it's just a compilation of some of the footage that I have for the purpose of giving you a feeling of the space that I've been working on. So this is not a work in itself, but it's just like a, yeah, you will see and you will understand me more.
Boom. به ماکینان کرنا دکر بخواد گرید جاوید ویتر لینه مانا چلو لپر هش کرنی هیلا گور آفتینی نوکی بری به همه جوری بهار یا چی گابی بهار بفر حالیا داشته گری قباد بی هاکو گولا کی لیتات
او نیزکی دو مهان فلان ورنگی هاکو گولکیت ما ایرا به 80 جوجکان بی بهاران جوجک تاتنالی را هزاران جرا جوجک هبون مار هبون
هجده و شوا هجده آدای قلنگ تانوی داشت.
نهوی دو بلکه نهوی سی بیت از بیشم وی سالی برای وکری بون
اما سری براز بگیا بعد دنگه توپانوی سلاحانوی اوا
نه والله ما قلنا
دنگه
والله دنگه تده گوت با حیط
دنگه دیار نبوده گفت با دنگ 100 متر دور متی تو دی چه باری بده گفت با 1000 متر دور متی تو دی چه باید گفت با 2000 متر دور متی من از اون دنگ کلیدید دنگ نخویا
دنگ گل عجیب بو هاکو قلبی انسانه که چانی میرو گوی خابده تا سنگ دنگ قلبه بیت دنگ یک ورنگیج نهیلید تاد
مجبور خواب هستیم گور از چوی میوه داره گریان هیکت قلنگاد گریان هیکت قازاد گریان گوته همچون من دیوار دیدیم بره 3 ساله بره همچون من دیوار دیدیم جه دنگی او دنگی کوناته جویر را دیدیم
گوتن آن مثلا گو بنیوی مثلا شلق وید که آن دنگ جیتیده بزن دنگ پاتو بوده
کل برا ما کردو بسرمانه ایرا هریستیان ارمنی تش لیره بین بسرمان تین واناش ویرید کنه داره ایراد کنه داره آجیتین کو برامر جنک یک ظالم یک بچکیت خوش چنا اویل بنا نیاگان ایل مینن تجاد بیجن او دنگ قیرا وان بچکیت وانا ولی هاتا
So what we saw was just like some excerpts from the interviews that were conducted during 2019 together with my collaborators in the region. Names you saw, Mahkum Abi, Erselan Aktan, and Ibrahim Dayan. And this material that I have is, of course, I have very long hours of interviews with a lot of people, but normally this is not how I work, and this is not how I usually form my own works. And I mostly write my own scripts and go and film my own writing in the region in a more controlled way. But in this project, I followed a different approach. This landscape, Yüksekova Hakkari, is a place that I've been visiting since many years, since 2010 for different projects. But recently I was interested in the environmental impact of the conflict that was going on there. And when we started interviewing people, all these layers of different history and different perspectives came up, and every little village around this huge plain has a different understanding of the space, and they have different experiences. Some of them are dealing with agriculture, some of them are dealing with livestock business, and some of them are there for they have very recent history there. Some of them have been there since a long time. So what I did was by immersing myself into the space through these interviews is to turn my camera into a shovel to dig in, basically. And by collecting this material, I think I understand the place a little better than I used to. And of course, this is for me a research material yet, and it's not an artwork yet. And I have certain threads that I would like to follow. And one of them is this landscape that's gone through a dramatic change with the direct intervention of Turkish state with the drainage of this landscape with the wetland. These animals and the wildlife and the plantation vegetation has changed dramatically, and the landscape got filled with new species. And I would like to show you a short video of a little piece that is going to show the porcupines of Mahkum, of my friend.
الو رحمت چانه رحمت هتشتکی بیجم ساش بیشت بوم کیلو یک برای لازمتی که پیدا کنم جو کاس بسیار رحمت کم کار رحمتشی بیجم آنشی تمام پاکی دست سریا چی نبوده تمام.
Yeah, instead of talking on each of these pieces or these little snippets, I just want to continue because, as I said, this is a work in progress, and what we have is a lack of plot instead of a plot. So I will just, pour down whatever I have in no particular order. So let me share my screen and I show you some of the images that I made from the landscape throughout my different visits. Yeah, this is a map of the area, and as Yektan was talking about this territory, this is like the southeast end of Turkish national borders, and on the east we see Iran, and on the south we see Iraq, and this is surrounded by these huge mountains. The elevation of the plain, the plateau, is 2,000 meters, and the mountains surrounding it are around 4,000 to 4,500 meters. And I'll just quickly go through some of the images that I have. This is Mountain Cîlo. And there is a glacier on top of it. And this is again the same mount, the peak of it. And I will zoom in here and try to show you. I don't know if it is possible to see with the streaming quality, but there are these power lines going to the more or less peak of the mountain. And this is a power line that goes to the military point up there. And these images are shot from an airplane window. Yeah, some landscape descending. Yeah, again, the same mountain range from below. This is the plane. Another one. Yeah, this image is shot in late April, and as it was described, the plane gets really wet in this season, but the problem is it doesn't stay wet because it's been, yeah, there are channels that leads the water out now. Yeah, this is another interesting image where the signs of this territorial conflict is also visible in the image. Here in the yeah, this white spot here is a undercover military vehicle. Yeah, and here we see one of the military points that overlooks the whole space. And there are, I think, 6 or 7 of them surrounding the whole plane. Yeah, that image will come back later. And yeah, maybe we can show one other video, this, the next one.
Okay, now show me once again just a few movements there.
Well, Kung Fu can be practiced alone or with a partner. Practicing alone, they involve forms. Some imitate a crane, a monkey, a praying mantis. This is a crane form. Start off. This is one of the movement involved.
Show us one more movement and then we'll be all through.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. They have the tiger that start like a tiger, using claw to claw the face, or the beak of the crane to the eyes move. This is some of the movement involved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this little audition tape actually, where Bruce Lee demonstrates 5 animal kung fu moves, has inspired me to look at this material that I have in a different light. And as we see the landscape with the people as one unity, the wildlife that's been targeted can also serve as a way of forming a resistance. We will come back to this subject later in our conversation, but I wanted to look at this as a possibility of how animal limitations can help us understand how our body and the nature around us is shaped by how our body is shaped by the nature around us, and also the very beginning of the event when we hear the Karapete Khacho singing the poem song by Erdali Zainiki. The song talks about the crane and how this old blind man is longing for a cure for his eyes. Both the content and the vocal techniques that the singer is using is borrowed or talking about the same thing. So the formal aspects of singing, the throat singing of the traditional singing in the area is also very much shaped by the landscape and its soundscape. So I wanted to continue my research or my process by expanding the project in these directions a little bit. And maybe now we can continue with Peshwak, and of course we'll come back to our discussion later. Yeah.
Thank you, Savash. Hamid, could we get the first video played?
Tabii ki var. Bu bahsettiğimiz uluslararası bir sorun. Devamlı bununla ilgili konuşuluyor. Yerel sakinler de şikayetçi. Evlerini kaybediyorlar. Eskiden kalma evlerini, aile evlerini, köylerini kaybediyorlar. Ve bu rezervuarlar yüzünden su altında kalan kültürel miras kayboluyor. Fakat öte yandan ülke sınırlarını aşan bir sıkıntı bu. Örneğin Irak'ta akıntının sonundaki bataklıkların tahribatı meselesi var. Bu insanlar tarımsal faaliyetlerini sürdürmek için düzenli su akışına muhtaç. Şimdi aniden çok daha karmaşık bir dağıtım sistemine bağımlı haldeler. Ben bu konularda uzman değilim. Dolayısıyla bu tartışmayı daha ziyade diplomatlara, çevre sorumlularına ve uluslararası mahkemelerine bırakmak gerek. Ancak yerel düzeyde ilginizi çekebilecek bilgilere sahip olabilirim. Yıllar boyunca Güneydoğu Anadolu Projesi kapsamında yürütülen çalışmalarda çeşitli müteahhitlerle farklı projelerde çalıştım. Aslen rezervuardan zarar görmüş insanların iş bulması ve iskan edilmesiyle ilgili araştırmacı olarak işe alındım. Ama daha sonra yerinden edilen insanların rehabilitasyonu ve ekonomik entegrasyonunu kapsayan bölgesel gelişim planı ile ilgili topografik bir araştırmayı yönetmeye sevk edildim. Yani Anadolu'nun bu yoksul bölgesinde ekonomik fırsatlar o kadar az ki barajlara karşı çıkanlar bile inşaatına yardım ettiler. Yani sürekli. Devamlı düzensizliklerle karşılaşıyoruz. Aslına bakarsanız bu mesleğin bir parçası. Son zamanlarda mesela Fırat Nehri üstündeki Keban Barajı'nın etrafında gerçekleştirilen arkeolojik kurtarma çalışmalarının güncel durumu ile ilgili kapsamlı bir rapor hazırlamak için bir grup antropolojistle çalıştım. Bahsettiğim işler 70'li yıllardan beri kesintili olarak sürdürülüyor. Barajın bakım ekibinden rapor alırken tekrar barajdaki su akışında açıklanamayan iniş çıkışlara rastladık. Bu durum hidroelektrik türbinlerinin verimini kayda değer seviyede bayağı bir düşürüyor. Görünen o ki vakaların en şiddetli kayıtları da 2003 yazında gerçekleşmiş. Fakat o tarihten beri her geçen yıl küçük çaplı olaylar kayda geçmiş. Tanıştığımız köy sakinleri mesela nehrin akışına karşı barajın çıkış kapaklarına yüzen genç bir adam gördüklerinden bahsettiler. Ama mühendisler elbette sorunun sebebinin bu söylenceler olduğunu reddediyor. Kabul etmiyorlar bu durumu. Raporun son halinde bu olaydan çok az bahsettik. Ama takım yöneticimizin bu türbinlere meydan okuyan mitolojik yaratık hikayeleriyle ilgili iddialara da güldüğünü hatırlıyorum.
Share my screen. June 1974. Turkey inaugurates the first dam as part of the Great Anatolia project on the Euphrates, gaining new control over the water supply of Kurdish, Syrian, and Iraqi neighbors downriver. That same year, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, was founded.
In step with the Keban Dam, Syria opened its own dam on the Euphrates, the Tekhba, for which planning had been underway in partnership with the Soviet Union since the late 1950s. The combined effect of Turkey's and Syria's two dams on the Euphrates sent Iraq into a devastating drought, bringing Iraq and Syria to the brink of war. Turkey and Iraq entered an agreement in 1984, followed by Syria in 1987, in which Turkey guaranteed a set minimum annual flow from the Euphrates basin into Syria in exchange for these governments' vow to end PKK activities.
In the early 1990s, Turkey completed the Ataturk Dam, causing the forced resettlement of up to 50,000 people in a predominantly Kurdish region. It submerged the ancient city of Samosata, an ancient Hellenistic capital, as well as Nevali Chori, a Neolithic settlement with some of the world's oldest known temples and monuments.
In 2009, Turkey responded to an election victory by the pro-Kurdish DTP with hundreds of arrests and detainments of its members. That same year, Syria was in the midst of a 5-year drought and desperate for Turkey to relinquish more water resources. Since Syria insufficiently fulfilled Turkey's demand to suppress the Kurdish resistance as part of the 1987 agreement, Turkey refused to mitigate Syria's water crisis. The environmental fallout that followed ultimately fueled the farmers' protests that escalated into the political and social crisis, which later evolved into Syria's revolution and the resultant civil war.
May 2003. 15-year-old Ahmad Jabbar Karim Ali was murdered by the occupational UK forces who had entered Basra city as part of the invading coalition. Following the collapse of the Saddam regime, widespread looting took place. In the absence of official policies and institutions to respond to the aftermath of societal collapse, the soldiers improvised a system of extrajudicial discipline. The incident took place after soldiers were called to a derelict industrial compound where they found 20 to 30 suspected looters. Ahmad was one of 4 suspected looters who were detained and first made to roll around in a pool of stagnant water and then taken in a warrior-class armed vehicle to the Shatt al-Basra Canal, one of the distributaries of the Ararat, known in English as the Euphrates. According to one of the surviving detainees, Ayyad Salim Hanoun, the group were forced to enter the canal at gunpoint. He also gave testimony that the soldiers threw stones to force them into deeper water, although Ahmad was visibly floundering. Ahmad drowned, and following an inquest, his murderers were acquitted of manslaughter in a British court.
January 2018, police detained 10 suspects who were carrying out illegal excavations to smuggle ancient artifacts in Turkey's Midwest. Security officials arrived at the scene of the excavation and found that the suspects had dug a hole 3 meters in diameter and 4 meters in depth. They discovered a 2nd century mosaic at the site and a heart-shaped stone column. Museum officials who were also at the scene of the incident placed the artifacts under protection and launched an inquiry into the excavation. Police also confiscated 39 excavation tools and launched legal proceedings. To date, Turkish police have detained hundreds of individuals who engage in illegal archaeological excavations and the trade of ancient artifacts. Proceedings from the tale, dispatches from the duodissected corpus. We trailed our fingers along the vertebrae of the unfading serpent, its mouth a valley and its tongue a river forked, one known as black and the other spoken of as a yearning towards.
Freedom, perhaps towards freedom. Don't go.
Yannick Shakur, Burn Pit.
Don't go. Yilan, Yilan. Murat kara ilan. Snake. Come. Eat the bitter berries and ford the river with me to ascend. I want to show you where once lay a woman buried with her riches.
Insan? Human?
Armani. Wolves scratching at the doorframe. Uzman emerges nodding from the mud brick in camouflage, only to merge with the mountains.
Are you here for the golden Buddha of the Armenian king?
Yok, yok, no. Shair. We are humble scribes etching the contours of the river's voice. It speaks of a boy. Shenyurt, joyful home.
Bending with night, a speaker for Allah asks,
What in God's name are you doing here?
Sha'ir, we are tracing the contours of the forked tongue, the fastigium of Karasu, black water.
The eyes of mortal men look down upon us as if gods. Leave at once, stranger. Flee.
Ascending with the sun into a susurration, drones and drones, these hives are double, procuring honey and the iron taste. 2 eyes roll down from the summit, glimpsing the returning strangers. Cloaked in butterfly wings, like men dressed as gods, they stoop to the mud and ask,
Are you like us?
No, Tahir, Tahir. We are humble scribes etching the contours of the river's voice. It speaks of an invasion.
Bir defa hengameye kapılıp bir oğlan çocuğunu yuttuk ve nefesini kendi nefesimizde tuttuk. Onu taşırken evimizde gözyaşlarımızı yardıma koştuk. Orada, dağlarda onu toprağa ektik ve soluğundan bir fidan filizlendi.
This is duduk. In other words, it's balaban. This is duduk, and another name for this instrument is balaban. The mouthpiece is made of reed. It's a form of primitive oboe. It's just 1 octave, and the body of the instrument is made of apricot tree. And now we would like to show you one short video. Maybe before showing that, the name of this instrument in Turkish, balaban, is also a name for a bird. Now we will see a short video of that bird. What we saw was a bird that used to be very popular in this area that I'm doing this research in Nihil area. And right now it's almost extinct. And together with this bird, there are all other type of species that also gone extinct, that are not coming there anymore, like regionally extinct. And I was talking about how these animals that are leaving the space are being replaced by incoming new types of animals. And I will show you some of them right now. So you can see this is a drone. a heron, fighting falcon, a cobra helicopter, a tiger, a porcupine military carrier, leopard 2, another cobra, this is ground weapon, scorpion, a armed police vehicle, and another one, panther. And these are the animals that are being replaced. These are the animals that are replacing the existing animals, or the ones that used to exist there. And yeah, maybe now we can slightly shift to the because these devices, they not only borrow the names of these animals, but also they borrow specific imitations. They also borrow the specific visioning technologies from animals with infrared technologies and ultraviolet technologies, that visioning devices that they have, also trying to expand their capabilities through this. And also drone technologies also, of course, following the bird's eye perspective. And yeah, maybe now we can slightly shift to.
Of course, I think the conversation around invasive species and animals replacing others is a great place for us to bring some of our stories around the NATO base that you see in the film. There is a short story that I think we'd like to introduce you to, and that's around these two characters that were very likely military personnel and came to us introducing themselves as butterfly hunters. So if you'd like to maybe share your interaction with them and how we came about seeing them.
So can you hear me? Yes. The video that we saw earlier, there was two mountain ranges, one which was related to the course. So it's the separation of the Euphrates into two courses, the Karasu and the Murat. One was in the Murat, which is a PKK stronghold, and the other is where was at the end of the headwaters of the Karasu, where we encountered a NATO radar listening station. And when we approached there, at first, I think we could talk about the Imam later, the interaction, but we went there following the course of the river to the headwaters to film it. And as we were approaching, we encountered there was like a bee harvesting beehives. Beehives, which you also heard the sound of in the video. It also mimicked the sound of the hydro lines, which were running high current electricity to the base. So there's a mirroring also with Savash's work with seeing these hydropower lines in the middle of kind of empty, or not so-called empty of people, landscapes running high power energy to the NATO base. And as we were filming this white Land Rover, which is similar to the one that was pictured in your photograph, so there's a lot of parallels in was making down the one road that came from the NATO base and stopped about 200 meters from us, and two men emerged from the car, from the truck, dressed in kind of an expeditionary outfit and with very long lenses, started to take photographs of us. And kind of a strategy of ours when we're doing this kind of field work just to avoid conflict is to try to diffuse the situation. So I approached them and asked them, "Oh, are you also here to film the river?" Kind of in a similar way to how you were filming this conversation about cheese when you were actually filming the base or the trucks. And the man was very disarmed with my Canadian English accent, I guess. And he had this look of panic on his face because he wasn't expecting me to come up. He was expecting us to flee. To fear. And he just turned his camera to the mud and started taking pictures of the mud and saying, "Oh, no, we're here photographing butterflies." And this was actually the second time
we've encountered this in a border zone or in a militarized zone where the cover of butterfly photographers or butterfly hunters has been used as a cover for having long-range zoom lenses. And specifically because a lot of these militarized regions, kind of as Ektan was talking about also, are places where there are ecologies or geographies that are, how would you put it, like left in a natural state or as a standing reserve, as a buffer zone between border zones. And in a lot of these places, you have resurgence of endemic species who would otherwise be endangered. So actually the militarization of the region in kind of contraposition to the experience in Cîlo actually allows for endemic species to reemerge.
Like for me, one of the most important motives for doing this, working on this project, is not only lament on a landscape that's been degrading day by day in a nostalgic way, or just writing a beautiful poem about how beautiful it used to be, but also to see and emphasize the resistance towards this invasion, because there is resistance, both by the nature and by the people residing on it. And maybe at this point we can show you one short video of a boy who is dancing with a scorpion.
والله وصبرت شريك
أقول زياراتي طبعا
قوش قوش قوش قوش قوش
Sen çektin. Aynı yere içeriye girdim de çektim. İçeriye mi sokun?
So, as Yektan is also was also talking about it towards the end of his presentation, this landscape is being used by the state apparatus, weaponized against the local territory, local people, but also it is also a territory that's been made home by the locals. So it's also a base for the resistance. And I just wanted to end my own part by just remembering this very old Kurdish expression that says, no friends but mountains, which is actually used in order to emphasize the political loneliness of Kurdish resistance throughout decades and maybe even centuries. But it also refers to the connection that the people has with the land. Yeah, that's my part.
Thank you. One point that is important to remember is in some contexts, resistance can be best interpreted as a will to survive. And in the case of some of our interactions with people who are inhabiting the regions close to these borders is how porous the borders have become for them. So in a way, the will to survive economically, socially, to engage with your family that's across the border in either Iran or Syria, is in a way their daily resistance. And on a day-to-day basis, the informal trade that takes place over the borders, for example, at the end of our film, you see these group of reapers who, when we're having tea with them and kind of sitting having a smoke, they're all smoking Iranian cigarettes. So I asked them, where do you get it from? And they're like, I was just there earlier in the morning. I just got it. And now I came back. And I asked, how do you go through the border? Would it not be difficult to do that? And they're like, no, I just get on a horse and I ride. And he pointed to the border tower, the monitoring tower. And he's like, they shoot and I ride faster. So there is this idea of completely disavowing the border and refusing to acknowledge it as a barrier to your day-to-day needs, which includes informal trade, formal relations with your family, friends that might be across the border. So there is something really valuable and quite planetary in disavowing borders as a form of resistance this easily and kind of jokingly almost. In our film, we also, in Shenyurt, the part that is very close to the NATO base, we actually arrived there, as you could possibly have interpreted from our poem performance, at night at first. And there was, the first person we met was an imam. So we're asking him, what is he doing there and what kind of, because the first thing we notice is everyone shares the same cell phones and they have the identical phone. And the moment they see someone that they don't recognize, they will look at the plate number and immediately kind of start texting. So obviously you imagine there is some kind of surveillance that is being done by some of the people that live in this area for the NATO surveillance base.
Well, confirmed to us.
Yes, it was confirmed later on, but that was our first reading of it. And when we were talking to the imam, we're telling him we're filmmakers, we're interested in making a film about the river and following the Ararat to its headwaters. And he gets super paranoid and panicky. And he's like, no, they're watching us. And he points to the mountain and there's this massive NATO station that we haven't actually noticed till then. Yeah. And it's like, there are eyes on the mountain. Everyone is seeing you. So he refuses to engage with us on any deep level. But some of his friends that were from Azerbaijan and they spoke, Nakhchivan, and they spoke Russian, later on engaged with Felix. And there was this conversation around like essentially this fear, this paranoia that exists within these communities. And the Imam himself was talking about how he has been sent to this small village from a bigger city as a way of, like he's part of a program of promoting a new understanding, a milder understanding of Islam. So it is interesting to bring, I guess, maybe in the Q&A, a bit of the conversation around the word jihad and how it is defined in Islam as like struggle. And that struggle could be internal, and it has obviously many negative connotations today, but this internal and external struggle is in a way a resistance of the intellectual thought, the schools of thought that exist within the geography. So that's something we can also maybe open up during the Q&A or if there's a conversation after that. But I believe that's kind of the panel that we wanted to present. So if we can open this up for the Q&A and
perhaps some responses from Yektan as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, yeah.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank Yektan for his presentation. It's almost an impossible task to summarize the complexity of the region in 10 minutes. So thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you all. Maybe I will throw the ball to Yektan and give him opening the door a little bit for his comments or questions if you want to intervene. Or maybe you have specific questions to Yektan. I just wanted to open the conversation between the panelists before I can ask a question, maybe. Yektan, would you like to say something now? Or?
Yes, actually, I mean, both works, of course, like, we are my presentation is way away from covering everything touched upon in these really rich representations. And I really like the idea, in different ways, like, how resistance comes back into picture and how that is actually related closely related to environment by all means, not only in terms of terrain, but also with, let's say, botanical features, with its animals and everything, water flow. And going back to the issue of resistance, I think it might be a good idea to think about resistance in both ways. On the one hand side, thinking about techniques of state governmentality as a project of making resistance impossible. So it is kind of a counter resistance enterprise, so to speak, and also thinking about as Pajbat just said, thinking about resistance also a strategy of survival. I think it works both ways. That that environment, or weaponizing, employing the environment, really frames the tension of tension between making resistance impossible and using resistance as a way of survival. And I can give so many historical examples of this tension. And for instance, mountain on the one hand side, it supposedly seals the borders, right? That's what you think. But actually, mountain being mountain is also creates the way, it kind of makes a cross-border osmosis or contacts kind of more secure. So here I would like to recall James Scott's work on altitude, where he uses the term of when he referring to communities living at high altitudes as art of not being governed. So I would I think that also brings together the approach, the artistic approach. So it's kind of we can call those people who live in these frontier areas, border areas, as artists as such, because they are performing an art of making resistance possible, so that in order to survive, so to speak. Let me stop here, and I would love to respond to any other further questions that you might possibly have.
Do you guys want to add something on that?
Very interesting, the issue of governmentality and the way it kind of played out in our own experiences in a dual dimension with the Murat and the Karasu, in the sense where the Karasu is like a entirely surveilled space, but it's also a very flat mountain where the Karasu rises with an open vista, and the way that everyone in the village was kind of folded into the security apparatus and extended as eyes of this greater eye, which is the radar station. While in the Murat, where it was a much more rocky volcanic landscape, there was, as the center of kind of PKK resistance, with many caves, with many crevices, where the security apparatus has a much more difficult time exerting itself, and exerts itself in a much more, let's say, obvious and crude way, in the sense of in Dobayazid or Diyadin, where there are actually citadels created, contemporary citadels created in the middle of a city. Like when you pass through Diyadin, the main road is just blockaded by a citadel that is bloated so much that it has taken over the road and redirected the road around it. So when you enter the region, you're automatically faced with checkpoints and roadblocks, and at every point you enter or exit any city, this level of kind of, I would say, a crude form of militarism is imposed, as in part because the mountains are so conducive to guerrilla warfare.
But also to add to that is that when the military apparatus bloats to that level, it leaves no room but to resist, because in order to exist as a normal person and just go from point A to point B, you're going to be exposed to so much military harassment, essentially, that your existence becomes resistance. So that whole idea of like will to survive becomes more and more pronounced in
when
a
you have to
context
pass
of
a
military.
checkpoint every day,
Absolutely.
when you have to, and there was in the Adin, for example, several cases of the army running over teenagers or shooting at teenagers, and that causing a spark in kind of uprisings against the military occupation.
Yeah, that's a very common story, actually. Yeah.
I have a question. I was intrigued by your analogy between your camera and a shovel in the beginning of your presentation. That your camera is somehow a shovel that through which you unearth all of this layers and layers of content that locality has. And it reminded me of Felix's and Huzbe's talk yesterday, when you were in southern Armenia, and a friend of you was talking about your presence in relation to the ethnic and the territorial conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And he told you that there are some things that the camera can do and that the gun cannot. And I was really intrigued about that statement, because on the one hand, you can read it almost as a hopeful expectation that the camera can somehow communicate certain causes or achieve certain goals that the use of violence cannot express or achieve. Or you can read that sentence or that statement in a more ominous way, in which the camera is also implicitly holding in itself the potential for a type of violence that the gun cannot perpetrate. I want to know how you deal with that, those thin lines in your practice.
A very good question. I'm going to take a few seconds to think about it.
I mean, I would say just maybe not from our own practice, but in the ongoing conflict in Karabakh, we see the camera being implicated in a very powerful way, and in a sense exacerbating the conflict with propaganda from both sides, kind of fueling the ongoing and how would you call it, escalating conflict. So in this sense, there is that aspect, of course. But I think you're concerned more with, or the question was more about our practice.
I mean, the thing is, the use of the camera, maybe to answer this question, it might be good to give a bit of a background to like the production of our film, for example, and how it came about. Because we were essentially living in a tent for the duration of making this work. So we were like sleeping in the landscape, and a lot of it, we went into it trying to, it was in the continuation of what we talked about in the talk yesterday. We went into it trying to almost like lose ourselves. And there was this moment or many days when we were working in Yerevan, Armenia, and we were looking at Mount Ararat from afar, not being able to reach it because it's obviously in another country, but the whole urban planning of Yerevan is designed to look towards the mountain. So it's this monument that exists always, and you're looking at it. So our primary goal in the first place was to go to the mountain, and also the kind of objective we have with this film was in the beginning quite like simple, I would say. It was to follow the Euphrates and try to find out where the headwaters begin. And
I mean, it was intentionally naive because we understood that following a river that has such a loaded political, social context, just by simply following it, we're going to encounter. It was a way of kind of developing a counter methodology for research, where instead of going with a hypothesis in mind, we go with,
or even a question.
We have just a geographical, non-human kind of structure or actor, which guides what questions we're even going to be encountering or posing in the end. And it was intentionally kind of a naive process and why the film is called Weak Enough to Hear, because we wanted to make ourselves as humble to the landscape and its complexity as possible, to try to approach it not as experts or as geographers, but as this is kind of why we use this idea of the poet as someone who is just attuning themselves not only to the human, the anthropomorphic aspects of the landscape, but all of these other elements, whether it's these spirits, these ghosts, the water, all biotic life that exists in these regions, and the memories that echo continuously through this place.
Yeah, for me, the camera is a difficult tool to handle. I mean, I started my photographic work mostly with portrait works, and I was familiarizing myself with people through photography. So for me, camera was an excuse to get close to people and create a communication. But towards the end, I got colder to this idea. And especially in my last project, the state we are in, when I was working with this exactly the same place, actually, Yüksekova, Hakkari, the same town, being destroyed and everybody losing everything, it felt really difficult to point my camera towards people. So I somehow stopped working with portrait photography in that sense. And that made me realize more and more that camera is actually a very colonial tool by design. There is a scholar, Ariel Azulay. She was coming up with this statement saying that the invention of photography is 1492. So this Colombian colonialist history and all the technological advancements it brought led to the construction and the invention of this device by white men, and it's being used as a hegemonic device over the people that actually remained in front of it, just like a weapon, basically. So when you see a camera in a space, it divides the territory into two areas, in front of the camera and behind the camera, and there is a hierarchical difference between. So basically, I felt this this fault of the device that I'm using more and more throughout this project, and it's a problem for me. So I'm trying to work around it in different ways, but I still don't have a solution to this problem.
Yektan, I was also very intrigued by your opening statement, acknowledging the importance of these types of works, artworks, particularly these two works, for some sort of lack in the academic or scholarly approach. And going back to that idea that there are some things that a camera can do that a gun cannot. And if we replace the dispositive of the camera to the frameworks and the tools that you deal with as a scholar and within the framework of academia, how do you navigate between, on the one hand, the implicit violence that those frameworks impose, and on the other, more hopeful possibilities that they can open?
Really very interesting and difficult question, of course. First of all, I think, I cannot talk in general about academia, but especially in anthropology, a camera has been more and more central device It's like, yeah, I know many colleagues whose dissertation also included a documentary or some kind of like use of camera, but Savaş's comments were very interesting. I mean, really, I mean that we need to think about technology is another area that we can talk about. Again, ongoing struggles of hegemony, and going back to its roots, of course, like photography, phonograph, they were all they were not necessarily meant to become devices of surveillance, but definitely were picked up by, like internet today or like digital technologies, were picked up by state actors and apparati to be employed, to be utilized to make to make resistance as much impossible as possible, so to speak. But definitely seeing is definitely, making visible is definitely, I would say, that's my experience, would say more powerful than just writing. And that's why, that's another reason why I find to the two works that I got to see once again tonight so powerful, because there is so much nuance, so many I mean, so many possibilities in the narrative, that oftentimes in dry scholarly texts, it's much more difficult to attain, not comparable, I would say, in general. I don't know if by any means that is a response to, that's an answer to your question, but yes, I wish, for instance, I had I had command over visual tools or visual devices, and also like perspectives that I heard today before I finished my dissertation. Yeah, let me stop here.
I think it's never too late to start, Yektan. I mean,
yeah, sure. That's why I use the term inspiration. It's inspiring.
Perfect. So hopefully we'll see some collaborations coming after this event. Yes.
Definitely.
I have a technical person on top of every detail, so to avoid certain situations. On that note, and talking about cameras, I've been staring to a camera for a long time now, and it has become uncanny. I would like to thank you, Ektan, for joining us from Berlin online. Thank you so much for
Thank you very much.
The amazing overview, and in really short time. That's hopefully you can pick this up, this conversation, and give you more time.
Thank you.
And thank you, Felix and Huzbe and Savaş, for the commitment and for the content today. And looking forward to seeing how your project, Savaş, will unfold. And I would like to invite everyone that's watching online to join us next for the next event of the Environmental Identity Series, number 6, this time with a keynote by environmental philosopher Glenn Alberts. The keynote will be titled Shifting Identity from the Age of Solastalgia to the Symbiocene, and the event will also count with the artistic contribution of Lucas Hem, one of the current participants of the Van Eyck Academy. So join us on the next 5 November, it's a Thursday. The event will happen in the evening, and see you then. Thank you so much, everyone.